The big 30, episode 30.
Oh, yeah.
Conspiracy theories.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's some sort of UFO goddamn noise. Very good. Tuning into episode 30. We are a little bit echoey again.
Still
once again,
echoey.
but we're going to try to reduce it, working towards it. I've got and I've started to swap it up. I think I began with Coke Zeros, and now I'm at the iced coffees. Mac is sponsoring today's one, so it's all good.
Be into hot chocolates when we're coming into winter.
Oh, yeah, exactly. In Australia here, coming into the winter, it's going to get cold.
And virusy, probably.
Well, not more virusy than when we are right now. Hopefully, not as much.
Yep.
Now, as always, before we get started, mere mortal moment of the week. Do you want to get us started?
Yep. So mine is creating options for yourself alters your mind state. And so this ties in with last week when we were talking about negotiations. Mm-hmm. And I was saying I'm pretty bad at it, but one of the things I'm good at, I suppose, is creating more options for myself so that I don't have to negotiate well. I can just choose whatever's like the best for me. Mm-hmm. Granted, I realize that's, a bit of a cop out, and there probably are going to be points in my life where I need to be able to negotiate well. But that's something I'm working on as well. But I'd just say, like, additional choices, it can get to a point of being overwhelming. So say, like, you're looking for a new job and then you start applying everywhere. And maybe it's a job where you'll be like, you apply for stuff that's up beneath you as well. So you have so many job offers that you're not sure what you want and can't pick. Yep. But I think that, like, forces you to reassess your priorities and values as well, and see, like, okay, is this actually what I care about? Is this what I want to be doing? Yeah. So, I'd say that always creating options for yourself, no matter what the venue is. Yeah. It's usually a good choice.
Yeah. No, very good. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to read off my phone for a couple of things, because as a mere mortal one, I forgot my notes. Yep. But I've got them right on here. Now, my one is be broad, but at the same time, be deep where it matters. Yep. So I guess interesting through this week, I had a bit of spare time, and one of my monthly goals was learning about, in particular, the Adobe products. So Adobe Photoshop, Premiere Pro, Illustrator, After Effects. Now, I ended up broadening my set of not just learning about that, but then learning about how you can create using the audio tools, almost like music through some of the Adobe products, and how you can connect them together and all this sort of broad things. And it kind of took me about halfway through the week, and I was like, well, I am broadly learning. This is fantastic. Okay, excellent. But I'm not really going deep enough on the things that are important for me to be learning about, whether it was Premiere Pro or Photoshop and the like. Yeah. And I was kind of learning other things that realistically, in the whole notion of it, yes, I'm learning, but it's probably not the right stuff to be learning, or I shouldn't be focusing on. So there's a little bit of a mere mortal moment of being too broad and not being deep enough in the things that matters.
For sure. And we've been talking about, like, especially with the podcast and things, like what we want to be setting as priorities. And, funnily enough, I think our number one priority should be to start sorting out our priorities.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Both of us are struggling with that at the moment. But
we are now at episode 30, and I believe post this episode we're going to have a discussion on where the trajectory of this will go as well, and everything in between. So, it only took us 4 months, 5 months, but we're getting there.
No, longer than that.
Now, okay.
We're up to 6 months at least.
Oh, jeez. Conspiracy theories. I've got a bit of definition. I'm going to jump into it first just because I've got my phone unlocked. Yeah. I believe that some covert but influential organization is responsible for an unexplained event. Now, that was a Googled definition. I didn't really like it. No. It was too, talking about influential organization, I think there can be entities, there can be many other things. My definition of it was a set of beliefs that go against the overwhelming odds or commonly viewed response by society, usually around unexplained events. Okay. So I kind of, rather than just being like, it's a take at what you think some sort of organization is doing incorrectly, I think it was more a conspiracy theory would be the ideals of someone or individuals against overwhelming odds or what the general consensus is, purely because there's conspiracy theories that end up being correct. So it isn't so much that organizations are lying in that, it's that there might be a 1% group thinking that the moon landing didn't happen, but in actual fact it did. But often cases they might be actually correct. So I think it's just more like a statistical variants of how many people believe something as opposed to another, rather than just an influential organization sort of hoodwinking people.
Okay.
That's kind of my definition.
Well,
Although I want to hear yours, because this one's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I think you need that essence of other people being covertly involved in stuff. So like when I was looking it up, because for example, you could also say, Albert Einstein, when he was coming up with the theory of relativity, he was definitely going against the grain of what was commonly believed, but it's not really like there was a conspiracy theory to stop his theory getting out. So I think you definitely do. What I saw was more like you need two or more entities, things, people, whatever it is, some sort of conscious beings, working secretly to obtain a goal. And usually it's going to be against the common grain or whatnot.
Sure.
But I guess like you could also have conspiracy theories where it's like it's common knowledge as well. So yeah, I don't know.
I tend to think it's also, that's why I added from a definition, usually around unexplained events. Because when things are explainable, so when you talk about the Einstein, perspective, I guess you can explain that, he was going after something and it was kind of like, even if you didn't believe in it, it's not so much that it's an unexplained event or something that's happened. He's just looking for something and that's his action.
Yeah.
I guess an unexplained event would be, if we're going to get into it, things like the MH370 plane that went missing. Yeah. So there's a factor of unexplained events that happened, and there's some individuals who think something happened or something else happened, and that's when you can have conspiracy theories, because there's no real confirmed or overall statistic that says like, there's exactly what happened. No, it's a little bit in the edge, and that's where conspiracy theories can start to pop up. And it's, from my take, it's those odd low percentage that normally have the more extreme take that then traverse into that conspiracy theory sort of level.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like definitely the what of something is like a critical factor in it, because I sort of had something simple that doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So for instance, like you're talking about the moon landing, one of the biggest things about that was the faked photos of it. And this is definitely true. You can see photos that were supposedly taken on the moon. You can also see side-by-side pictures of people who were doing that like in studio. And basically you can say like, okay, here's very obvious evidence that what they were saying was the landing on the moon has actually just been taken in a studio. And then I suppose the question there is, where do you take it from there? Because some people like to take it to the government's lying to us. The
full extreme of where it could possibly be.
As far as you can go with it, which it's like, okay, I can sort of see with that piece of evidence why you do that. But you could also go, they did that because taking photos in space is really hard and you get shit photos. So you know what? We'll take some in the studio. We'll release that. This is what it's meant to look like. We definitely did go to the moon and whatnot, but all the photos were shit. Imagine someone went to the moon and they just kept the camera like with the lens on the whole time. Bullshit.
Do you think it was one of those ones like they took them to the moon, they came all the way back, and they were like, Neil, you did not take the right photo. It was all blurry. Yeah. You were taking selfies the whole time. Like, what are you doing? We're going to have to reshoot this. Let's just pretend it all worked.
Look, it was probably a bit of both. Like, they probably, like, there was such a thirst for information that's what they just, like, they needed new photos, so they just retouched some ones they'd taken actually going to the moon or post. Like, I don't know. I haven't looked into it that deeply. I'd say...
Interesting with conspiracy theories because... back in the day, so you're talking about moon landing, 1960s. That was a time when technologically, it is hard to fake something. The technology and things like Photoshop or whatever else, hard to kind of fake it. Did they maybe take some shots to, make it look or get particular views? Maybe, perhaps. Did they get there? I think that they did. I don't think there's a reason for why they lied about it getting there.
Yeah.
Apart from the race with Russians and everyone else. But you fast forward to it now. Imagine if that was a thing now in today's world, if there was like a space race or something like that. You could just very easily, do fake videos, fake shots now, and you would not be able to tell that it's a fake shot. It would probably be too real that you would be like, oh, okay, this is too good of a photo to really have been taken on the moon or something like that. You'd have to like scale it down.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more room nowadays for a conspiracy theory to take place, just because any Tom and Harry can create something that looks quite real to pick up.
Yeah, it's funny, like you'd think with the internet being invented and whatnot, the access to information would solve these issues, but it's not really.
Almost like turns it on the head. So it's like too much information and everyone's taking it whichever way.
For sure. I don't know if you've seen that many videos where it's like you can still tell they're sort of fake though. Like there's been a couple where it's like it wasn't that long ago, a Japanese lady was like skiing down a mountain and she's taking like a selfie camera, whatnot.
Yeah.
And there's a bear you can see behind her in the video, and like she starts snowboarding and you can see the bear chasing after her. And if you look at the video, you can tell like, okay, yeah, there's kind of like there's something weird about it. But yeah, like how many videos now do you think that you actually watch in a day-to-day which are actually made up, like completely made up? Because there's varying degrees, right? If you put a filter on your Instagram video,
is that made up or not?
You're altering reality.
The conspiracy theory of having filters on your Instagram.
Yeah.
So I thought, to get started on the conspiracy theories, I thought I've got a couple of, I guess, notable ones that we could talk about. Not that we want to explain them or not. Then I've got a couple that were conspiracy theories to begin with and then were actually real, which was quite cool as well. And then I found some science behind the conspiracy theories and why particularly people could start thinking in that way. And I think there was actually a study done late 1990s, 2000s to explain it. So that's sort of stuff I want to talk about. Is that similar to your things, or you got?
I sort of went for like a who, what, when, where, why, and looking at like, I suppose there's
some notable ones
a little bit of psychology behind it, some in general, and like why we come up with them. More like looking at the person actually creating them and the theory himself rather than the
cool. Okay,
theories.
So I didn't go that deep with some of them, so that'd be cool, interesting to take place. So some of the ones that I noted, so MH370. So we talked about it already. March 2014, plane goes down. Nobody knows about it. Still hasn't been resolved. I remember where I was too when I heard about this. It was in.
So that was 2014. Wasn't
it? 24. I was in
6 years ago.
New Zealand when that happened. I was skiing in New Zealand when I heard that happen. But yeah, it's one of those interesting ones because that's not just unique to that flight. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of flights that have gone missing or have gone down. I don't particularly think there was anything. I don't think there's any conspiracy theories there. I just think it's gone down somewhere and sort of it's a big world, it's a big ocean. Things can go and disappear.
Yeah,
I think it's still something that is undergoing discussion and investigations and whatnot.
Yeah,
but yeah, whatever. The other ones that I kind of pulled up were things that maybe we normally haven't or you don't typically hear of, but they're quite large as well. Because the usual ones are like the moon landing, this Earth being flat.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones? The 9/11,
Roswell and the aliens,
global warming.
Yeah.
Some people still think that I guess is conspiracy theories behind there. So it's interesting.
Depopulation, Illuminati,
yeah, which is a good one. But I got a couple of different ones which I guess I'd known about them, I'd heard about it, but wanted to pull out a couple of info to, I guess, give some more insight into conspiracy theories. One is, did you ever hear about the chemtrails?
I haven't gone into it. I've heard of it.
Okay. So essentially, I was like, okay, I want to have a bit of a look. So essentially, it's said to be known as SLAP, Secret Large Scale Atmospheric Program. So the theory alleges that there's water condensation trails from the aircrafts, consists of chemical or biological agents containing sort of toxic mix of aluminium, strontium, and barium under secret government policies. And essentially, they're saying that 76 out of 77 participating chemists and geologists think that there's really no evidence behind it, but there's one person who thinks that there might be evidence behind it, and that's why the conspiracy theories around it continues.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't actually find why the government would be putting toxic into the atmosphere, whether it's to control people or
I thought it was to alter the weather.
The weather.
Patterns.
I couldn't really see too much around that either.
And like potentially create tornadoes to attack Russia, shit like that, like a weapons program. That's
it's one of those like simplicity theories where when you're talking about conspiracy theories, it's like often when there's something that's unexplained. So say chemtrails, they might actually have an explainable thing, but under the definition, to a layman individual, you'll see a plane going by and you'll see trails, and you can choose to think in a more, I guess, a simplistic nature of what might be happening if it's unexplained, or you can think of some really crazy idea of what might be happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts leading into the conspiracy theories, because you could look up and go, okay, that plane's probably going at whatever certain speed, or it's dropping water or whatever, and it's creating trails, or it's cutting through atmosphere and doing that sort of shape and taking that. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Potentially. Not sure exactly how physically that's happening, but okay.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, you look up, you see a plane, there's a little bit of cloud or whatever, you're like, the government's trying to kill me.
Yeah.
They're putting aluminium. There's a tornado that's going to happen. Maybe your house goes on fire. And it was that goddamn plane putting chemtrails.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about these sorts of things. They tend to come in groups. So it's not like I think it's very rare to find someone who believes in just one conspiracy theory.
You think as in like
quite far out?
Like you say, like there'd have to be more than just one that you would believe.
I think like if you believe the moon landing is a hoax, you've got a real good chance that those are the same sorts of people who would believe, like as a percentage wise, that same group would believe probably like, I don't know, at least 50%. I'm just making up numbers, but that same group who believe the moon landing's a hoax, a large portion of them would also believe that 9/11 was faked. That
Do you think though, like across the board, you would say?
Not like all of them, but I think you've got a way better chance of that same person. Like I think it's a mindset. So like you were saying, two random people on the street come across, look up, see the white trails behind a jet plane or whatnot, and one of them thinks, I wonder what that is. That's interesting. And the other, as you said, goes immediately to the government and
the insanity,
trying to kill you. I think that would happen like a lot more as well. So those two same people come across the fake moon landing photos. One of them thinks like, oh, that's weird. I wonder why that happened. And the other one would go to the extreme. So I think it's definitely like a thing that catches on. And there's a personal thing that I've found, and my dad actually recommended it to me when I had this guy I used to work with who was he had some things like wrong with him in the sense like his personality was fucked up. He had some serious work
some
issues,
loose nuts.
And he could like physically do his engineering job okay at times. I mean, he did actually like cost the company millions of dollars when he fucked up.
I've told me this person. I've heard of this guy before.
But yeah, he was a young Earth creationist, so he believed the world was 6,000 years old, and that's a bit of a weird one because that falls more under religion than a conspiracy theory. Like I don't think they.
Here's the interesting one though, because you could extend conspiracy theory to be within religion as well, which is an interesting take. And I would take it in still if you see the definition, and it is a point of view of individuals towards an unexplained event. You could term that some religion is to do with unexplainable events, perhaps something to do with birth or rebirth in sort of Indian tradition. I wouldn't actually go down that far and say all religions are conspiracy theories. Definitely not. But then there's things like Scientology, which is not really religion, but it's getting close towards there. And you would kind of see that as conspiracy theory if you don't believe in it. I think there's some that have more formal backgrounds, and I wouldn't call them the conspiracy theory. But I think there's, I guess, aspects of people's mindsets where you say like, young Earth or flat Earth. You could have similar sort of mindsets around believing that as believing, say, in Hinduism or rebirth or other aspects of things, because it would be unexplained. Happy if you disagree with it, though.
Yeah, I do, 100%. I think those are different things, because religion and cults, like what you're talking about there, I don't think Scientology is, because it's a bit less of a classic religion. I don't think that's sliding into conspiracy theory. I think that's sliding into cult-like stuff. I think because with all religions, it's not really like the main arcing structure of it isn't there's people trying to hold us down or whatnot. It's a belief. It's like finding meaning with God or with the traditions or the rituals, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't like, and I think that's why, you need to have that secrecy, 2 or more people, conspirators working towards something. Otherwise, you could just say every idea is a conspiracy theory because it's trying to explain something.
Sure. Okay. All right. I get your framework on it.
While we're talking about religion, I did have something here. I was like, so why do people gravitate towards conspiracy theories? And I was sort of thinking, like, is there a need in the brain to make sense of things?
Yep.
So obviously we need to. That's if something happens, and you can see this with little kids, like all they ask is why?
Yep.
Why are we doing this? Why is that like that? And even though it's like lessened as adults, we do still have that same thing.
Well, it's the example of like if a rock flew through this window. We might be able to put it out of our minds, but still something in your brain will have to be like, oh, how did this happen? Why did that happen?
Yeah.
And, I guess in this example, it's like, someone could have thrown it through, and that might be a normal reaction. Or you could be like, the government threw the rock at me. Conspiracy theory, they're trying to kill me.
Well, not even that to that extent. Like you were saying with the Adobe stuff, you were getting into it, but you were going down different paths, and you were asking like, oh, why is that? Or
sure,
like that sort of learning thing. So one of the things I was thinking was, can and does it replace religion in some sort of sense? So especially there's, I think there's one thing we need to watch out is making fun of it the whole time.
Yep.
Because as you mentioned, and we'll get onto it, there are conspiracy theories
that have been proven true.
That turned out to be true. And so it's still a conspiracy theory because there was people goddamn conspiring to do shit.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. And so there's true ones and false ones. Now, I think probably most of the ones you see are false.
Yes. Well, and I guess we didn't, we kind of defined a little bit of it, but let's just step back. Conspiracy is, in essence, it's a theory that someone or a group of people are doing something that's from an unexplainable event that is against the grain of what they're telling you.
Yeah.
I guess if you're really defining it in that manner.
The secrecy part of it, I think, is a critical, and potentially the lying part about it.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, this certain leader is doing things. So we'll put a name on it because that's easier. So have you seen all the ones about George Soros and
well, I did. Yep. I did have a couple of things on that one.
So he gets linked to a lot of ones. I think like the main one I've seen is he's part of. Well, there's sort of two. There's one, and they link together as well. One is that he's part of like the Jewish cabal, and the Jews are secretly running the world, and they're propagating their aims, and this gets into the whole Israel thing, gets into the whole like why are Jews so popular, and so many of them run Fortune 500 companies and whatnot.
Everything between,
things like that, and then also the depopulation, which is a pretty big one as well. So there's some people who...
I didn't particularly see any of the depopulation linked to George Soros, but I did see you're right. There's a lot of stuff linked to him.
Yeah. So he's, for those who don't know him, he is Hungarian, I believe.
Yes,
and
Hungarian born.
Is him or his parents escaped the Holocaust just before it happened in their country.
Yep.
He is an investment banker, is that right? Or a hedge fund manager?
Well, he used to be he was a hedge fund manager, and in essence, he amalgamated $12 billion worth, and then at a certain point, he sort of split up, and he has an international non-for-profit that he runs, and he essentially moved $8 billion of his money into that charitable profit, so he's worth $3 billion or so.
Yeah,
but that international non-for-profit works to distribute money to political, economical individuals across the world.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. That's what he does. That's how it works. I think where he gets linked to a lot of things is because all of a sudden people think like, well, there's a political party winning in Africa or something.
Yeah.
They could potentially, whether it is proven or not, you can start thinking like, well, if they're getting $1 million from this international non-for-profit, what's he getting back in return? And that's where the conspiracy theory comes from George Soros as well. Okay, well, he controls. One of the things I was reading was like, he controls a lot of people in power because, if you put a lot of politicians in their place or senators or ministers.
Start drawing the webs and
exactly. And all of a sudden you're in control of like what can happen here, what can happen there. And it's all sort of channeled through his, non-for-profit in essence.
Yeah.
Whether actually, like, in my belief, 100% that would happen. Like, that's just a use of money to create power and create control. That it isn't a conspiracy theory, well, there's nothing actively that I've read that's like, okay, well, this person died or this whole constitution didn't pass or law didn't go down that he was in charge of or that he wanted. But surely something like that would have happened. And, across Australia, things like that happen, I'm sure, all the time. So, I guess lobbyists and what lobbyists do, right?
Yeah.
Would people call a lobbyist or what they might do a conspiracy theory because they're lobbying to pass, certain amendments to laws so that big miners can go and dig stuff out of the ground. So, yeah, they do that. Is that a conspiracy thing because, they're allowed to do that? Perhaps not. That's just, that's just what happens. That's just an activity and it's known as well. So I think with George Soros, where he's using a massive amount of money to do certain things, well, you can kind of explain it. So to me, it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's just, okay, cool. That's what he does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with those is it's just so weird how they do try to do all that linking and they put so much, I guess, like knowledge, like they give people so much credit for stuff that has not been proven to
be true
or like something you wouldn't really expect from a human to be able to be capable of managing. So with those big spiderweb diagrams where it's like, George Soros is linked to a charity in Africa that has some political leanings, maybe slightly to the left. To, I think he's like, founded Black Lives Matter or you'll see like, so if someone's angry about something, they'll go like, oh, okay, so they were funded by this company, which is funded by this one, which is funded by this one. George Soros funds this one. So he's
responsible for the whole
directly thing. Linked. So like then if you go that far, I'm probably getting paid by George Soros money like all the time.
Maybe. You might be. Before actually, because we're kind of talking about the psychology aspect of it, I'll go down to on my notes on this particular one because I was looking at the psychology backing of it and whatnot. And there was a particular principle or theory behind why they think that conspiracy theories or people believe in conspiracy theories. And it was called Galileo's Gap. Did you read into that at all?
No.
So in 1623, the Assayer. So Galileo was sort of striking an image in between the studies of nature. And there's a particular quote he uses, which is, "The use of mathematics creates a rift between those unable to understand the special language and those who do, making it easier for the former to distrust the latter." So the whole point behind it of sort of Galileo's Gap is if you just split into two, you've got people who understand things that might be happening and you have those that might not understand what's happening. And that gap in understanding creates a lack of trust to the other group. So while he's sort of talking about mathematics there, he was saying that in particular conspiracy theories may be led by, say, UFOs. So you have lots of conspiracy theories about UFOs and they might be really, really smart about particular things. But a group, someone who might be more logically reasoning and, we might say like, oh, UFOs do exist. Cool. That might be, I believe they exist somewhere out there in some form or shape. Do I think they're coming in here and like probing your ass and trying to like find out what sort of bacteria you've got inside of you? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. But there might be a level of whether it's logical distancing or, sort of thought process that separates them. And then that separation of, I guess, ideas or intellect or understanding can create distrust by the party who doesn't understand as much. And usually the government has a lot more understanding or, idea of what's going on in comparison to your general, maybe, outback individual who has no idea what's going on. They might just believe in something and they go, well, I distrust this entity because they seem to know more. I distrust them. I think they're lying to us, in essence, right? So I think that was an interesting sort of read about the Galileo's Gap. I don't think it, covers everything, but it kind of paints a good picture around, okay, why might an individual not believe the party or entity that has more understanding? And it'd just be a distrust between what they know and what you know.
Yeah.
So I thought, that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
It kind of goes into like, let's just talk about it right now, coronavirus, with, I guess, how people get paid and, how people are going to get money. Not that I've seen it, but you could start building conspiracy theories like, they're going to try and keep these particular companies alive and my company's dying, or they're trying to redistribute funding or what have you, right? There could be lots of things. Now, I'm in a position to know in particular what all the stimulus packages are and how they're being built and all that sort of stuff. So I've got that information. So to me, I'm like, I'm in the knowledge. I can't even think of any conspiracy theories because I can see directly how it's being built. But someone who's maybe really impacted by all of this coronavirus stuff, or isn't aware, or isn't going to receive money from the government, they'll go, they might think, there's something going on here. They're getting money, I'm not getting money. I'm going to lose my business. There must be something wrong. Is it distribution, right? So they can start having that distrust to people or the entities that have the knowledge, I guess. So that was Galileo's gap, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the things would be, it sort of makes you feel safe. So I think it's definitely more a psychological thing than definitely the part of having a lack of knowledge and other people having more can create that distrust.
Yep.
And I suppose one of the critical parts of a conspiracy theory is that someone's lying to you, so you can't trust certain things, and usually it's like the mass media or whatnot. But I think it's sort of like it sort of makes you feel safe that you know what's going on. As in, there's let's just take the medical big pharma one. Have you heard of that? So there's certain people who believe that big pharma is actually, we have the cures for basically every single
cancer, whatever.
But because if they released it, people would stop getting it, and then these companies would stop getting the money from, providing cancer treatment drugs or whatnot. Yeah. Or vice versa, that we're being infected with diseases and whatnot. So
you have to use pharma. So kind of like the example I've also heard is, cold and flus, there's flu tablets and the powders and everything like that. And it's, there is out there ways to completely prevent it, but big pharma doesn't want you to do that because they make a ton load of money from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that anti-vaccine sort of gets into that as well.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what their thing is. I know they think it'll give you autism. Yep. But why exactly it will, why they're doing that. I think it's, part to sort of alter, the everyone in the world and create mindless slaves so they can rule over us and whatnot.
Sure. And I can understand something like the big pharma point, right? It's, they make money out of all this. They make a huge amount of profit. So you can understand when they're like, these guys are making a lot of profit, Is it other things that they're doing or that they're keeping on going? You could theoretically think okay, if they did have a solution to cure all colds, maybe they wouldn't release it because, if they did release it, then they're going to lose all this money. That is fact. That is fact. So you could, it could be thought that if they do have that solution to it, they would keep it. And that's where you can get this straight to this conspiracy theories because it's unexplained. There's no real way you can prove it unless, you're really in deep with one of those companies and know the secrets or whatnot, and whether it's real or not. Does it help kind of getting really frustrated into that point either? Not if you can help it. And I guess that's one of the things that conspiracy theories I also seem to note is that whenever you think of conspiracy theories, you think some nuts with metal on their head and they're going nuts about a particular topic and they're really making a big deal about it. Yeah. If it is true with the big pharma, there's nothing really actively that you can do, and you can get out and shout at the top of your lungs or whatever it may be. But, there's going to be, if it hasn't been found out to this day, there's very little chance that you as an individual are going to get in there and figure it out, is my point of view. And you're not ultimately going to get much benefit out of chasing that, that sort of path. Yeah. So
when I'm talking about these sorts of things, I'm usually referring to the people who go balls deep on them and believe lots of them, and it's a significant part of their day. Me personally, it would freak me out if I thought, it's sort of weird because I think that anyway, that we have very little control over what we do, and most of the things are getting affected without our control. Yep. For me, though, I don't really put that on other people. I think that's just sort of just how the way the universe works, and like that shit just happens.
Yep.
Like there's all this stuff put in motion. What can I actually do? How much can I actually affect? Very, very little. But yeah, I think for some people it's sort of like gives them a little sense of control. Like they have responsibility over, or maybe like thinking they have so little control, it gives them like the opportunity to not have responsibility. So
true.
What's the point of even going to work today? Like the government's trying to screw me over in 5, 10, 15 different ways.
Yeah, I better not go and do that.
What's the point? Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. Like just that the mindset I find of and I've really only met one person. That was the guy I used to work with.
Yeah,
who was full deep into a lot of them. And I got the opportunity one day driving home from work. It was one of, I think, his last days. And I sort of probed him on a bunch of them. And yeah, man, like those floodgates got
just wide open.
We had a good hour and a half ride home from work.
Yeah.
I got hit with some. But the thing is, like, I was actually sort of making fun of him with another dude from work, like just really well put together guy. And we're talking about 9/11, and I was like, yeah, man, he's like, this dude's crazy. He believes in 9/11. And the other guy's like, oh, no, I believe in that. Like, I believe that it was faked.
Right.
And he was really put together as well. So that sort of like blew me away for a bit. So I didn't really know what to say to him because I was like, oh, shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's weird. So, for instance, are there any conspiracy theories that you believe in that you would particularly say?
I think there's a lot for me more in the financial world that I would say that there is conspiracy theories around, who controls a lot of big banks and big powers and that sort of thing. So I totally believe that families like the Rothschilds and, people like a George Soros or others with like just massive magnitudes of money.
Yeah, like they are trying to influence people with that money.
Yeah, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory that, they've got a lot of money and they influence a lot of things through the use of money, right? Even if you look at a really low scale, right? A local mayor, if a local mayor gets a bag of money of like $1 million to win an election, you're going to be like, it's a little bit rigged. Might not be able to prove it. Some may call it conspiracy theory, whatever. I think at the big scale, you've got this massive players with massive amounts of money.
Yeah, well, it's like with that much money, it's going to do things whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah, you're gonna essentially be changing whole societies, whole cities.
Yeah.
And like for me, I would believe that there's a lot of money that flows through the likes of Africa, right? That are sort of a developing whole continent that would be backed by a lot of sort of strong, powerful players or people that would control just giant aspects of it. And same thing in China. I talked with a couple of people in China, and there's quite high up sort of officials and the like which have humongous amounts of power. Even in I would believe that whether it's called a conspiracy theory or not, the numbers that came out of China for coronavirus, right? They say it was about 89,000 people who got infected and about 4,000 people who died.
Yeah.
I was listening to Jordan Belfort, who, he thinks he knows someone very in-depth and deep in the Chinese sort of business and political, area. And he was sort of saying there was actually about 500,000 people who died of coronavirus. Now, for me, I'd be like, maybe not to all that extent, but I totally believe that there'd be a much higher number, or the numbers are quite skewed from what we saw in China. Currently the US has 500,000 people infected, and more north of 20,000 people have died pretty much either now or very, very soon. So I would be really, I'm like, I'd look at the numbers coming out of China. I'd be like, nah, I do not believe that at all. I don't think it's like 500,000 dead, maybe not, but much higher. So that to me, I'd be like, those are the things that I'm like, I can't really explain it. There's no foolproof information. It might even be Galileo's gap because, there's people who know that info. I definitely do not. I don't have the full info, but I'm going to go down the path of, I think it's incorrect, or that's not the full truth behind it.
For sure.
So, yeah. What about you?
I don't know if you follow that Jeffrey Epstein case much. I haven't followed it a lot, but yeah, some of the things from it just are so like out there that you're like, okay, something weird's happening here. Yeah. Definitely you feel like you're not getting told the whole thing. But that being said, I haven't got too deep into it, so I don't. I don't. Yeah, I'd say in general, I believe a lot of people do a lot of things to influence others, and they lie about it as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get caught out with those lies, and so that's when you can see people saying, "Look, I told you. Like, prove it. This is true."
Yeah.
In general, I'd say like the way I look at it is, just a couple of rules of thumb. Don't explain to malice what you can explain to incompetence and stupidity.
Let's go on.
I think like I've had a little touch here and there of like big projects and can see just how quickly like they can unravel and, things pop up and you have so little control over what actually happens, especially over a long time period that it's like, I think I've just had that taste of realizing very complex situations, they just get altered so quickly that you can't, there's no one can control like you, because they usually like one or a group or 10, 20, 30 people who are controlling these things. They're controlling the world economy. They're controlling the whole of how we act and whatnot. And like I suppose like I just can't take that leap into the big one. So how many of the big conspiracy theories do I believe? Pretty close to zero. If you name like the big ones, I'd be like, no, I don't think so. But like if I got into some particular ones, I could probably be like,
there is one. I think anybody can get themselves far enough in the fact that you don't know enough information about something to then create, thoughts behind it and be like, oh, I actually think it's this weird thing or whatever else. So
I suppose it's like how deep my level of deepness. So there's, the people who go 100% deep. If you have not checked out or have heard of the YouTube channel All Gas No Brakes.
All Gas No Brakes. I have not heard that.
You have to check it out, man. So it's basically a dude who's sort of got that. Do you know Kasim G?
Yeah.
So it's that very deadpan reporting style, but also silly. And it's this guy in the US who, like, he intentionally dresses in like the shit brown suit and goes to these events. And so he's been to like the Talladega. Been to I'm not sure if it was Burning Man, but it was a Consciousness and Enlightenment Expo. He usually goes to these big expos where you have like weirdos at. And he went to a Flat Earth convention. And it's amazing. Like the people there are just so far out there.
I think we need to go to one of those ones, man. We gotta find when this goes back out and we can go, bro. We should go one of those events and just hit them up and see how it goes. It would match up with conspiracy theory episode. It'd be good. We would point them back and be like, you should listen to episode 30 of Be Immortals.
So that one, if you haven't done that, check that out. And I think so. Like if you're saying that's 100% and 0% is someone walking around who's maybe like, I would never believe a single thing. Like everything I get told is the truth. I'd probably be leaning more towards, like 50%, maybe like 80% in the sense that I believe that most people are full of shit, but how much control they have over big events or even if like maybe I could believe that they think they're controlling these things.
Sure. Yes.
But they have like very little control over what they're actually trying to do.
Yeah. Look, I wouldn't be like in my mind, I probably said 50-60% because I don't believe that, there's individuals out there with, setting up backyards or whatever. And, they're keeping the information of UFOs and whatever. Something like Area 51. It's a freaking huge area. There's a lot of people there. There's always, yes, they're keeping people out. I don't particularly believe it's because it's UFOs sitting there chilling out, hanging about or whatever. I think there's particular things that they're building or, warfare or whatever else. I think there's other reasons to my mind. But if there were, do I think the government's doing things that we don't know about? Well 100%. There's the amount of money that goes into, say, the military budget is just like multiples about anything else. Surely they're building things that you don't even know about. I know I got to like the second deepest level of security clearance. And some of the things that I was seeing was like, okay, this is pretty like wacky. Like no person would really know about it. And there's much deeper levels where you just have no clue what's going on. I know someone who worked for sort of the deputy for the state, and they would have some discussions that are sort of weekly or fortnightly with other people, and they would talk about, where the next incoming sort of bomb threat was going to be, or, whatever else about people incoming into Australia. Now, that could be a conspiracy theory if you thought about it and had no knowledge, but those are like real things that were happening weekly or fortnightly. But you might just think like, oh, Gennaro over there looks quite dodgy. Maybe he's building a bomb. Well, perhaps he actually is. Yeah. Like or you might just hate the dude. So either way,
that's actually a good another piece of advice, I suppose, is if it's something that requires many people to implement. So let's just say the 9/11, George Bush actually put explosives in the bottom of the basements of the buildings to make sure they fall. How many people would it require to do that? And then they also, I think part of that was those people on the planes were all actors, and all those actors were actual people. They were actors, and they just landed planes somewhere else. They were all let free. Yeah, and those planes never actually hit it, and you can go real deep into it.
Jeez,
the amount of people you'd think
it'd be a lot of stuff you'd have to fool, right?
That's pretty much my only my main big argument against it is just that many people would be required. I just can't see that many people being able to keep their mouths shut. They killed all of them. Yeah, okay.
Interestingly, though, so one of the ones that I was going through some of the psychology and what I actually came across. So physicists actually calculated the maximum number of people who could be part of a conspiracy without blowing it open.
Okay.
And I don't actually know how they did the calculation or whatever, but specifically for a hoax moon landing, they said it would be 410,000 people in the space of 4 years that could know about it with the conspiracy not blowing open. So then I was like, whoa, that's a huge number. That's like a lot of people without blowing open. So that's his sort of calculation. I'm not sure how the calculation is, just sort of what he went down with.
Okay.
If it is indeed 410,000, you could make the case of like, okay, you could fool 410, or you could get 410,000 people in the knowledge of there was a fake moon landing or there's fake 9/11 or whatever, and potentially keep it under tight. Could that be, it might be something to do with the percentage or statistics of the people who can know about it against, everyone else believing something, and then that ratio doesn't allow it. I'm not sure. But it was an interesting number. I was like, didn't want to get too in depth with that one, but I was like, okay.
Actually that sort of makes sense as well, I suppose, because, say it's the grunts putting the dynamite in the bottom of the 9/11 buildings. Maybe they don't know the full scale of what's going to happen. Maybe they've been told, oh, this is just like a planning exercise.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, when you're in the practice, yeah.
But
that's right.
I suppose with that sort of thing, I'd find it really hard to believe that they wouldn't be able to connect what actually happened with what they were doing and then spilling the beans to someone about that.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe with that, he was talking about... I suppose one of the things you hear from Joe Rogan, for example, is he personally heard that what's the Weinstein?
Yep.
That he was a bit of a creep, that he was doing all these sort of things. Same with Cosby.
Yeah.
Like he'd heard rumors.
All these things, yeah.
And that's the thing, I suppose, that rumors, you can't prove if they're true or false. So it's a conspiracy theory in the sense like, Bill Cosby's actually, and that maybe that's not conspiracy theory, maybe that's getting into something else, more like the rumor mill of what's true and what's not.
As opposed to, because it's not,
And I suppose with that sort of thing, like, okay, these dudes did some pretty fucked up stuff, raping women, drugging women, and sexually assaulting them, and they managed to do this for a long time before finally getting busted.
Yeah.
So, that definitely shows the ability of individuals to get away with some messed up stuff. And they had...
Oh, and if you think about it, like, if there's groups like that can get away with it, what can really massive corporations get away with? Right?
Yeah,
so one of the famous ones is HSBC's got picked up with, they were laundering like just hundreds of millions of dollars of money off the Mexican cartel.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even the fact that HSBC even knew about it. It was that there was certain... banking, sort of sites in Mexico and through America that, they were able to pass through these funds that were very clearly sort of narcotics sort of money, and they were trying to drug money. Yeah. And it just wasn't picked up in particular ones. Some people got paid off. Then the money just started circulating. And, HSBC globally didn't really know that was like obviously a thing.
Yeah.
But there were certain really senior officials that probably knew or were getting paid or whatever to kind of like let it slide.
Yeah.
So before all that happened, there was conspiracy theories that started in Mexico and then started spreading, and HSBC was like, no, we're not doing that. Nothing like that's happening, until it blew up in their face and they had to pay billions of dollars worth. Yeah. It just recently happened to Westpac, where Westpac got picked up because similar transactions were happening with countries that are not allowed to work through the financial systems because, they do undertake illegal sort of monetary items that they pass around. But it was like through 3 companies or something like, or through like 3 movements of money went through Westpac, and Westpac didn't pick it up. Now, they themselves probably didn't know it as a whole entity, but there was probably players in there that were enabled that stuff to happen. So,
for sure.
There could be conspiracy theories there. Was it even intended? Maybe by some individuals who had power in there.
Yeah.
So,
and how much of that is down to malice, and how much of that is down to like it's Friday 5 p.m. and you get this like knock on the door, email, and you're like, no, screw this.
I'm going home. Monday. Exactly. I've got a couple of lists here of conspiracy theories that, some of the more notable ones which ended up being true.
Okay. Yep.
Some I didn't really know about, so some was cool. One called the Project Sunshine. So this was in America in the wake of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There was this big thing going around that the US government commenced a major study to measure the effects of nuclear fallout on the human body. So the conspiracy was the government was stealing dead bodies to do radioactive testing. And after a few years, it actually ended up picked up. It wasn't so much that they were taking lots of dead bodies. They were just taking parts of dead bodies and exposing them to sort of young tissues and sort of just bombing them with nuclear reactivity to see what it would end up doing and getting... they were getting to seize babies and children just to see what it would happen to their skin and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they eventually had to go and collect notification and permissions from 1,500 families to say, oh, by the way, we took your dead babies and dead kids and dead husbands or whatever, and we blasted them with some nuclear stuff to see what would happen. So that was an interesting one, Project Sunshine. The other one, which is pretty famous, is the whole MK Ultra. So the idea of like the CIA testing it with LSD and doing all these things for top secret, and they kept that locked away for a long, long time. And that's the whole thing about this is the like quintessential why is it conspiracy theories? Because there's people out there being like, they're doing something, the government's like, no, we're not doing it. It's all fine, don't worry about it. And then it gets exposed to like, oh yeah, we are doing MK Ultra. And that one was all around grabbing volunteers, and they were dosing people without the knowledge with really high doses of LSD. A lot of them were permanently mentally disabled, and at the time they were just, I guess they were trying to see what large doses of LSD would do for normal human population. So that's an interesting one where the government was clearly doing something wrong but couldn't really share because they were doing something in secret. So,
well, do you know how that's linked to the Unabomber?
No.
Okay, so
tell me this.
He was one of the dudes who got dosed with a lot of LSD. And he was a smart dude, man. He was, I think he'd already got like a PhD by the time he was 18 or something, or a fellowship or something like that. Very, very smart guy. If you haven't read his manifesto before, a lot of it makes a lot of sense. Like you're reading it and you go, oh, like this makes sense. He's onto something here.
Yeah.
Obviously, his way of communicating that to the world by mailing bombs to companies and people is obviously an extreme measure, to say the least.
Probably a little bit out of the way, but
yeah. But even his methods of doing it, like he was doing it for a specific reason as well, which was to get who was it? Al Gore. He wanted Al Gore to get elected so that the Democratic Party would like continue what he saw was the degradation and blah 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 of the way society was going. A lot of that is linked to technology and his thoughts on how technology plays its part.
He makes it like a convincing discussion. Behind it.
Give it a read. It's really good. And he was one of the dudes who, I think that's a pretty easy link to see that. Giving LSD to people and without their knowledge of it
can be really
can cause some things. And like imagine it from his perspective. Like I guess he didn't know that he was getting. I don't think he ever knew he was getting dosed. But so how would he explain? Obviously, he's going on trips and things are happening to him.
Yeah.
How is he going to explain that to the world? That's definitely one where it's like, okay, can see a conspiracy theory. Something's
going on here.
Yeah, something's just happening here, and I don't know why
it's happening, how it's happening,
or what. So that's a real interesting one.
The only last one I've got there was, so this comes to like you were talking about the big pharma thing. So similarly, there was a big conspiracy theory around, and we all know this, right? Smoking can cause lung cancer and all these sort of issues. But for a longest time, right, from the 1960s onwards, it was like smoke, there was lots of advertising for it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until it was the 1990s when, companies like Marlboro and a couple of others came out and be like, oh, okay, yeah, like this is actually bad for you and prove it. But they actually found out that they had proof that smoking was bad for you and was killing people and could kill since the 1950s. So for 40 years, they were just like, okay, well, we know that, that's fine. There's money in it. Keep going.
Yeah.
So, that was a conspiracy theory that ended up being true.
Yeah.
So you can see why people would think like, well, from Big Pharma, they're making even more money than tobacco companies. Similarly, there could be things in there that they know, potentially lozenges or Vicks rub or something is actually causing you to get even sicker.
Yeah.
But it gives you temporary relief. Okay, cool. Let's just keep it on the down low because it's making us more money.
Yeah.
Could it be happening? Sure. Is there anything we control about it? Probably not. Not enough to get your knickers in a knot and go full out conspiracy theory, paint yourself red and get naked and sit in front of your pharmaceutical companies. Probably not. Don't do that. But could be happening. There's things that have happened in the past. History repeats itself.
Yeah, it does. Same with the CTE, brain injuries of NFL players. I think there was one doctor who was saying for ages, like, this stuff is bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And he kept on getting put down, and then eventually it came out, oh, wait, they are getting brain injuries.
Yeah, and people dying and stuff like that.
I think one right now is probably sugar as well. I don't know if you remember when fat was getting like lambasted as just this is the thing that's killing you. You shouldn't be eating eggs. You shouldn't be eating high fat meal or like foods or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's still sort of like that a bit. I guess it's turning, like, you'll hear like, oh, there's good fats and bad fats and that sort of stuff. I think definitely sugar is one of those ones where in probably like 30 years,
you'll be like, oh, dang.
Look back and be like, okay, the pudding, candy bars and stuff. I don't know if it'll ever become like illegal or anything, but it might be viewed at the same level as smoking is. Like, eating a candy bar is the same as like having a smoke.
Well, just like, just because now, like, whether there's enough data or people have even done the studies for it, I think it is known that more sugar in a body and that is, bad for you, whether you're a kid or an adult or whatever else. But it probably will take many years of information or data to say like, oh, by the way, this is as bad as smoking or sitting down or whatever else. And maybe we'll impose a tax on sugar or to some extent. I think it's starting to be like really well known, but not enough to completely be busted out. And you'll still see people out there, finding that eating sugary stuff or processed food is still really easy. So they'll still do it.
Yeah.
Similarly to,
my hand up for that.
Look, freaking McDonald's just iced latte that I just drank. Now for me, I'm like, well, I understand what sugar does to my body, and I'm not saying that I'm going to be drinking like 10 of these and think I'm going to be healthy.
Yeah,
everything in moderation is good, but I also don't think sugar is a conspiracy theory.
No.
Because there's proof to it. I just think that it's not known enough to individuals.
What I was trying to get at with that is there probably are people who know just how bad it is and have some very convincing studies of how bad it is, and they intentionally choose to keep that quiet.
Or imagine, there could be is it big companies like a McDonald's or otherwise that are pressuring or keeping some of that stuff on the down low so that it doesn't happen. Like one of the really big things that happens, and I had one in my mind but escapes me, is there's a lot of studies that get published in journal articles, right? And when you think, oh, something's been published in a journal article, it must be true. And then you dig into it, and actually it's been sponsored by the company, like an oil company or something like that, for them to publish that oil is really good for your plants or something like that, to that effect, right? Exactly. Because, and that's what people kind of can miss, because there's, I think journal articles in Germany that you don't have to have any qualifications or anything. You can just send the paper and they will publish it. And you can say it's a journal article in there. Exactly. Cool. And you can be like, it's been whatever, it's all correct. But realistically, you look at it and it's like, it hasn't been cross-checked. It's who's it's been sponsored by, who's like the influence of it, all that sort of stuff.
And you can do all sorts of weird things like, a scientist has rated this journal as the equivalent, like Germany's equivalent of Nature or Science or whatever.
Yep.
And you might have found a dude who says he's a scientist who's obviously crazy and out of his mind, says that, and then you can report that as fact. And that's one of those weird things where it's like, relying on science too much as well can get dangerous.
True.
If you look up the replication crisis right now, you can see there's a lot of scientific knowns, I suppose, that have been around for a long time that are getting debunked because they can't be replicated, which is sort of one of the tenets of science. I got two last things for. One was just an observation that it has to be that grand and extravagant, or no one's going to give a shit about it. You're not hearing about the ceramic and metal doorknob industry keeping down the plastic doorknob industry and all that's related with that, because no one's going to give a shit. That's just so uninteresting. So these are like one.
It's almost to the point you're like, okay, whatever, cool. Do it.
One of the great things about conspiracy theories is just how insane they can get, and especially when you go deep on them. And
when it's like something about the Earth or where it rotates. Okay, then it goes flat Earth, and you're like, that's a little bit more, and then you're like, but there's ice walls all around it, like a kilometer high, and then people patrolling it. Like, okay.
And then space is fake, so we're actually in like some sort of bubble, and it's like a screen being projected down upon us in this. It's just.
But then it gets to then you get to then there's the ones that are like, we all live in a simulation and that sort of stuff. And that's where I go, okay, well, that's not so much because it's not so much a conspiracy theory as opposed to I can see that there could be proof behind that. I can see there might be some understanding as to why you could see it, and maybe not how we think a simulation, but there can be things that we simulate now in technology sense that it's time to be like, well, is that even real or fake? You could kind of replay it back and be like, well, is that something that we could do? Not so much it is unexplained, but it's just a theory of something. No one's actually outright saying this is what's happening or not happening, or trying to put it back. It's also not held back by an entity. It's not an organization or something saying that this is happening or not happening. Where I think Flat Earth, it's a group of people saying this is what's happening, and they're just trying to prove everybody else why. I don't know, but it's an interesting one.
Why is the big question. Oh man, some of them are fun though. We've been trashing them a little bit here, but goddamn, some of them are really fun and funny as well. You just look at it and just holy damn,
entertaining,
and creative, man. People are creative. They come up with some amazing ways of thinking that I just couldn't do myself. The when part of it we already talked to a little bit, but a lot of this was pre-internet as well. So there's all sorts of ones. When Nero was the emperor of Rome, people were saying he didn't actually die, he's hidden somewhere. JFK, obviously, with the mob-related stuff. I'd never heard of this one, Paul McCartney. A lot of people were saying Paul McCartney died, so the Beatles hired a replacement for him, a really good body double and singer, so good that it's basically the same person, and then was subtly hinting in a lot of their lyrics that he actually died.
I kind of heard that.
I'd never heard that one before. This is a fun one I'd never heard before. The Middle Ages never happened.
Dang, I've never heard this.
So I think this is attributable to one dude who came up with this theory. And basically he was saying
the best type. I'm going to create a conspiracy theory today.
Basically he was saying, I think, two emperors and a pope in what would have been the time around 700 AD. I think it was 600 and something. They wanted to live in 1000 AD for some reason. So basically they skipped 300 years from where they were living and just told everyone,
we're now on 1080.
Yeah, we're now on 1000 or 998 or whatever. Yeah. And so he had like 3 main points for this. One was that there's not much geological evidence from those times of
800, 900 BC.
Yeah, like stone buildings and whatnot. There was Roman architecture after their fall. It was something to do with like the Roman architecture was still around and things
after
were being,
300 years, something like that. Yeah.
And then the last one was that he went through this whole thing. So there in each day of the year, in each year, there's actually 365.24129 blah 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 days. So we ran that up to 365.25, and so that's why every 4th year we get a leap day. But there is that extra little bit, which over every 100 years, I believe, adds to an extra day. And so he was looking at the Gregorian calendar and matching that with like the Roman or current calendars or something. And he was saying, okay, it should have been 13 days out of date because they didn't account for this tiny little thing. But it was only 10 days. So that means 300 years were like missing somewhere. And so that was another thing he used as part of that. So it was just
interesting. And it's interesting because it's kind of convincing. Like you can tell people and you're like, man, this must be true.
Yeah.
So, but then, interestingly, you can then, I'm sure it wouldn't take you too long nowadays anyways to find like information that counteracts that information. You could be like, I found a journal of someone from the 822 BC. Okay, cool.
Or YouTube videos, and then it's just like their word versus your word. And
can you imagine how hard it'd be to do that these days? Can you imagine if all of a sudden we wake up tomorrow and like all the media outlets like, it's 2300. Like, how's it going, guys? 2300. It's 2300. 2320 today. That's what it is. It's like you wouldn't be able to pass it off. Like there'd be a lot of people.
You would legit think you're crazy if someone did that to you.
But interestingly, if you can get almost like herd sort of mentality and then you make everyone, like 60% of people believe it's 2320.
You wouldn't need that many people. How many people do I interact with on a daily basis?
True,
It's probably like,
You could get enough actors 10, to fool you into thinking that it's 2300 and you're like...
Definitely.
Maybe it is.
That wouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
I don't think... Yeah, I think everyone's basically like grasp of reality is very tenuous. It wouldn't take that much to knock you about a bit. Yeah. Interesting. So,
very good.
Going to give a shout out to Matt, who was the one who suggested this. Was we've been this wasn't on my list of ones to do, but he thought it'd be a good idea to do that. So this is for you, Matt.
Very good. Excellent.
There we go.
Now, fitness challenge.
Ooh,
do you have the pen on you, mate?
No, I can't remember where I chucked it as well. So doesn't matter. All
right, you first. Any points to add to the list?
I'm going to do an imaginary. That's a 4. And that's another 4.
Oh, 44. Whew, what points did you get this time around?
So I did 15 reps of 15 kg
pull-ups. Dips. Very good. Nice.
So it was a weird one because I hadn't actually been practicing dips that much on the bars. It's only been this last 2 weeks. But for like 3 months prior, I'd been doing them on the rings, and you can only do half the reps because it's just so much harder on the rings. And so it sort of like felt I was a long way away from it.
And all of a sudden...
But then, it was just real easy to get. Like I did it yesterday. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah,
dang.
Good. So
very nice. Very good. Again, imaginary, 33.
Oh,
33. So those muscle ups, that muscle ups was double points for the 3. So 8 muscle ups. So 33 now. So dang, I thought I was closing in and you just flew by again. Very good. All right, that was episode 30, Conspiracy Theories. Again, thank you, Matt, for sharing that with us.
Yep.
If you, again, been this far, I don't even know how long it's been, probably an hour and 10 minutes, this particular discussion, or somewhere in the hour mark. Yep. Follow us on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the socials, the TikToks.
Everywhere, get on it.
Everywhere, find us. If you want to hear of something new, you want to see different kind of discussions, we are going to be changing it up as well. We're going to keep our formats of the episodes, but we're going to have a couple of more relaxed discussions, I think. A bit of back and forth, some of the stuff that we disagree on as well, or agree, or at least pick some topics and go from there.
Sounds good.
It's going to get good. It's going to get fun.
Nice. All right. Kyrin out.
Juan out.